Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Smoko podcast. My name is Alexis Armstrong, your host. Nice to meet you. The Smoko podcast is the place to celebrate and highlight women, trans women, and non binary folk working within STEM and trade occupations. So please tune in, take a break. We are on Smoko. And today we are extremely lucky to be joined by Tara Hogan, who is the founder of ArtHaus Projects, which brands itself as not your average estimator. And I'm so excited to learn what that means. She has over 10 years in construction in estimating and project management. She's done a little bit of everything: high-end knockdowns, rebuilds and renovations, architectural builds, including passive and eco homes. She is also the Women in Construction 2021 winner for Masters Builders in Queensland. And I'm so excited to have this conversation to talk about being a woman in construction, her experience in construction, and what it means to be not your average estimator. I can't wait to dive into that. So, Tara, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. When someone reads out all the things you've done and you kind of sit back and go, oh, yeah, that's right. I've actually done all of that. That's pretty wild.
It is wild.
And there's all the things you don't even talk about too that you go, yeah, right. Okay.
That happened. Yeah, I
That happened. We've done a bit.
forgot.
How cool.
Well, it's really
Thanks for
cool.
having me.
You're welcome. It's cool on the other side. Like whenever I put over those little bullets, I'm always just every extra bullet that gets added, I'm like, oh my God, come on. Like not another one. Like what? Like what is this? Who is this
Way to be an
superwoman?
overachiever, man. Come on.
Yeah, I'm like, save it for the rest of us, Tara. Come
Yeah.
on, man. So it's pretty amazing to have the opportunity to speak to you and to learn about everything that you've done. And maybe because you've done so much, maybe if we could start there of just being like, how did you become an estimator and how did you discover construction and building? Like, how did it first start, your first journey?
My first journey. So my journey isn't linear in the sense of going from education straight to
Mm,
this. I finished school and went overseas and traveled for a couple of years and came back and I went to uni, for 6 months and
mm.
absolutely
Not for you.
hated it. I was doing speech pathology and I remember sitting in this class. The only time I liked going to uni was for anatomy because we got to see all the back end of like humans, right? I was like, that's pretty cool. But for the most part, I was like, nah, not for me. So finished up with that. And then my dad was I think you guys call them electrical contractors. So he had his
Mhm.
own company and I used to work with him as a TA. So I'd just be on site with him, running cables, rough-ins, all this kind of stuff, right? And then I'd work in and out of the mines at the same time.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, which was
Okay.
fun because I don't
Yeah.
know if anyone who listens has ever been to Far North Queensland, but it's tropical and it's hot. And being in a roof pulling cables that's a journey in itself. So
Imagine.
yeah.
Yeah.
um, so I was doing that, and then I met these dudes out at the mines who just, became
Mhm.
mates, and we were all drunk one afternoon, and we're like, yeah, let's book some tickets to go see Prince. The Purple Man himself,
Yes.
Prince. Like, hell yeah, in Brisbane, which is like I'm from Far North Queensland up the top,
Mhm.
and then Brisbane is the main capital city of that state. So I'm like, yeah, sick. Let's go to Brizzy. And then at the same time, Jonestown Massacre was playing, like one of my other favorite bands. I was
Oh.
like, are you serious? This is amazing
So
vibe.
different too, Prince.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know, right?
very
It's like
spectrum.
one night grunge, the
Yeah.
other we're just like disco, just having a ball, right?
Love it.
And so I was at this Jonestown Massacre gig, and I remember getting this text message from this recruitment company that I'd done work for randomly, like just admin or something once in my
Mm.
life. And they're like, Brisbane jobs are going. Are you interested? I just went, yes, I
Yeah.
am. I don't even know what the job is, but let's roll. So 2 weeks later, ended up moving to Brisbane. And so working in this job, which I wasn't keen on, but I thought stepping stone, right? Always got to
Mhm.
think
Mhm.
forward picture. So I would go to interviews to see what other jobs were going on. Ended up getting an interview with the construction company as I was meant to be someone's PA and
Yeah.
like accounts. Two
Yeah.
things I've never done, but fake it till you make it. Yes, of course. Of course I've done that. And I was sitting in this interview. I think I said 2 words because I was out in this place called Darra, which at the
Mm.
time there was like cow paddocks. It was all industrial warehouses. I thought, I don't even know where I am. Like, what's going on? That particular builder, I wouldn't have worked well with him.
Mm.
like our personalities, and that's fine. But the
Mhm.
next day they called me and they said, the cowboy that we've been talking about in the corner, the other construction company who's commercial, he actually he wants you to work for him. I was like, huh, I didn't even meet him,
Cool.
but I thought,
Yeah,
all
okay.
right,
Sure, that
okay.
silent cowboy in the corner, why not?
Yeah. I was like, and then I met him, and I'm like, you truly are the definition of cowboy. And when I say cowboy, I mean cowboy in the sense of loose and fast in business.
Mhm.
He might have owned property, I'm not sure. But and so I worked with him, and I was meant to be, his PA. It was awful. The job
Mm.
sucked. I remember going into him one day and going, "Hey, dude, this job sucks. I'm going to get an electrical apprenticeship, which I'd been talking to a guy
Yeah.
about, or I'm going to go study project management because this sucks." He's like, "No,
Mhm.
you're not. You're actually going to work with the estimator who starts on Monday with the residential company." And I
Huh.
thought, two things, like, why does no one communicate in this office? Like, you could
Like,
have
this is
told
my new
me.
job in total. I was ready to quit it today, man.
Yeah. And I mean, two, what is an estimator? Like, who even is, like, the fictitious sounding role in itself? Like,
Yes. Mhm.
like, you're paid to guess in a way. But I was just like, whatever, bro. Okay. So, the weirdest thing is that my cousin's actually an estimator.
Mm.
And within, like, who has two estimators in the family just by chance? And I remember calling her and I was like, "Hey, I've just been offered this job as like an estimator. You're an estimator." Hey, she goes, "Dude, take it." So people have to study for years. They have to go through
Oh,
trade school
wow.
to
Yeah.
be what you were just given, and just
Take
roll
it.
with it.
Mhm.
I thought, all right, I'll give it a go. And so I gave it a go, and it's 10, 13. I can't even remember what years it is now that I now started in what would be like a cookie cutter kind of environment, project homes, where it's the same
Mhm.
thing. But I was always hungry for the really bad jobs, like the jobs which were mountain goat. And because we were developer and builder, we basically, the builder got all the pretty average blocks, right? Because
Mhm.
like, well, we can't sell them, so we'll just
Yeah.
build on them, which was
Yeah.
great for me because the experience I got in a vast majority of just average things was great.
Mm.
And I just kind of rolled with it and just kept going. And like my mates would open up bars. I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. Like,
Yeah.
I'll
Anything,
work at
any type of
anything.
like building.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
literally anything. And so fast forward now, I've somehow worked myself into having my own company that works with builders Australia wide,
Oh my
kind of
goodness.
sorting things out. Yeah. But
I
that's,
absolutely I love that. Like, Tara, that's I the entire time you're talking, as soon as you said the artist formerly known as Prince, I was like, where is this going and how are we going to tie it into estimation? But I love it. Like, whatever you're putting down, I'm here for it. Like, explain how Prince is tied to this. But I love that, like, the entire story is basically a go with the flow of just being like, if someone gives an opportunity, but you're like, what is the worst to say yes? Like, I'm just going to try, might as well see where it goes and takes me. And that's
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
wonderful that that's where you ended up. Like, that is so cool, and I love the role of the cowboy of being like, "Nope, you're not gonna quit. Absolutely not. You're becoming an estimator starting tomorrow." Like
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I look at some of the business practices that he did and I just went, oh, nah. But at the same time, I
Mhm.
also have a soft spot because whether he just wanted to get rid of me or he just went, no, I think you're going to be good at this,
Yeah.
he gave me that opportunity, and I thought I think that's pretty cool. So,
Yeah, he changed your life, like, whether he realized or not, or you realized in that moment, but, like, that's the next kinda pathway from there, and I love
yeah,
that you do have 2 estimators in the family. That is a completely very low statistic that that
so
happens.
weird, right? Like we're a
Yeah.
weird little niche thing to be
Mhm.
doing. It's like, what? Yeah.
It's like, 2 of the women estimators in all of Australia, because like, that's your cousin. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's in
You're like,
within one family.
yeah, and if someone spoke to us on the phone, they'd go, "Oh yeah, actually that makes so much sense. You sound the same."
Because it's actually related. Um, Tara, you mentioned your business, and I was wondering if we could dive into that a little bit because you're the founder of ArtHaus Projects. And I love this tagline of not your average estimator. As soon as I saw it, I was obsessed with it. I was like, okay, I'm going to definitely need her to explain this and kind of your alternate approach and creative way to do building. Like, what makes you guys so different, and how do you guys approach that problem in a different way? And then it's completely unrelated, but you also have one of the best logos and mascots of all time, which you are currently wearing on your shirt. And it would be very sad to not mention it as well. So if you could talk about ArtHaus, your logo, your kind of difference in looking at estimation and how you go through a project, please and thank you.
Yeah, no, sure. So ArtHaus Projects, well, my logo, we'll start with that because this is where
Okay.
all those years ago, my first ever estimating job, I had this busted ass Casio calculator that, you know, did the numbers. Everyone would come in and go, "What is that thing?" I'm like, "Hey man, it's 2 + 2, it equals it." And I just about two and a bit years ago, I need a logo,
Mm.
and reached out to one of my favorite artists here on the Gold Coast, Carl Tillman from Tillman Creative, and I said, "Dude, I want something to pay homage to Casio calculator, my
Mhm.
favorite sneakers that I wear on site. Don't know if I should mention brands. I just mentioned
You can if
Casio,
you
but
want. Yeah.
pair of
Don't
Vans,
worry.
love them. And just like something cheeky that represents
Mhm.
me because the way that I am, how I am with you right now is how I am with my builders.
Mhm.
So it's just, it is
Authentic.
what it is. And
Yeah.
originally I wanted flames on it, like that old skateboard brand. But my boyfriend's like,
Might be
maybe lose the flames, but this is sick. Yeah, and
yeah,
he sent this back over and I went, that's it, man.
done.
So yeah, I make shirts, I make tote bags, like
I love it.
anything to put a logo on.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's where this one comes from. And then I guess onto that is the difference in the way that we do or that I do business is it's very personable.
Mhm.
How I am right now is exactly what you get when you're working with ArtHaus, and it's also my creative brain. I wasn't a maths person in
Mhm.
school. Like, if I had have looked back for myself when I was a teenager, I'd just go, "How did this
How did you get
happen?
into a
How did you
mathematics?
end
Yeah.
up here?" And I'm pretty sure all my mates always think the same. They're like, "This doesn't make sense." Because I did film and TV, and I did arts, and I did
Mm.
sports, right? But I think having that creative brain has allowed me to look at things from a bigger point of view and not
Mm.
just honing in on, like black and white, if that
Mm.
kind of makes sense
Yeah,
in
no,
business. And,
totally.
numbers are numbers. We run them and it's like, that's it or that's that. But
Mm.
having a creative brain where I can nitpick how things can go together and how you can work best with a project or best with the client, because emotionally you've got to understand that. I
Mm.
think that helps a lot too with bridging with the builders on being a point of difference, because it's quite a holistic approach to estimating, project management, CA. We do like everything across a project, but it's
Mhm.
tailored to the business. So it's tailored to to that builder or
Mhm.
that developer of how they need to roll, because we're here to fit into how they operate and not vice versa.
I gotcha.
So yeah, I've found that's quite an interesting point of difference of how we operate, and then the creativity just comes from just
Problem solving probably and being like, okay, what can
yeah,
we
the
do
problem
with this?
solving.
Yeah.
And I love making like stupid content reels, because what I do is pretty boring. If anyone's ever done estimating, it can be really boring. So the only way I can keep myself engaged in it is by, making funny little videos on Instagram, or like being on site going, "Oh, check that out," taking the piss. So yeah,
Mm.
that's yeah.
The creative way, the art way.
The art
And
house
when
way.
I love the art house way. Like I think it's so brilliant and you can see through your social media how fun it is. Like I was like, how is she making estimation fun? Because maybe if you could
Yeah.
describe what the traditional estimation looks like, because it looks very different than what you're showing to the world and what you guys do.
Yes. Yeah. So I think traditionally people probably think spreadsheets, numbers, suit and tie maybe as well,
Mm,
like a corporate kind of environment. And that's not at all what we are here. So I mean, yeah, we got spreadsheets, we got software. Like I'm affiliated with a software called Build Exact,
mm.
which, thanks to the way that they operate, I can actually operate across Australia and internationally. So
Oh, wonderful.
it's in Canada, the software. So if
Ooh.
anyone's keen, one of my dreams is to build in the snow. So
Oh, we
just
got
putting it out
lots
there.
here.
Yes,
Come on up. You got an
yes,
entire country to choose from if you want snow. Like, sure, we're the best place to come.
I'm keen. And so, so operating in that kind of non black and white realm is
Mm,
where we, I guess, shine. Our builders will come to us with the, hey, we've got this. We set up without giving away too much.
Mm.
set up things which are easy for them to filter information through to us. And then it's almost like the employee experience.
Mm.
That's
Yeah, you
kind
can
of
be part
what
of it.
actually someone said that to me this week. They're like, this is like the employee experience. And I thought, yeah, it is, because I like being a part of a team, but I also understand that I need to float around and do other things to
Mhm.
keep my own brain active, you know?
Mm. I love that. No, I think
Yeah.
that's so beautiful. And thank you for kind of explaining the differences a little bit more of like what does a traditional kind of role look like in estimation and like how you guys are doing it in such a personal way, which I really love. It's such a custom to communication with all your other vendors, but also to your end client and to the stakeholders in that, but also creating kind of new ideas and new problem solving and just it seems very dynamic. It seems very fun. And from a trade and a subset of construction that is all about numbers and spreadsheets and kind of metrics, it's a pretty amazing thing to do. And I know that something that you're really passionate about is this combining art and creativity, which I am very passionate about. I think that that makes you a very good skilled tradesperson or a scientist. I think is that kind of interconnection.
Yep.
Could you speak to the interconnection of science and art? And then what really helped you get to this place that you're describing, this creative new way? Was that something that was always, it kind of sounds like it was always instilled within you, but like what helped you get there? Somebody could try to bottle it up and copy it for their day to day.
Oh, I think, well, how do you even, oh, that's a good question. That's pretty deep. So I think one of the things that probably helps with that is maybe my personality type,
Mm,
where I don't get bogged down in that minutia of it's really heavy. And I'm very lucky in that sense that I can kind of see things from an open mind and go, all right, cool. Well,
mhm,
we'll put the energy to this, and this over here will just that'll happen when it happens, but that's all good. I understand, we've got a trajectory of going forward, and what do we put our energy to, and what's not going to bring us maybe the negative. That sounds woo woo,
mhm.
but it's
No,
just,
woo woo is very powerful. It's true.
yeah, I
Of like a
think, yeah, I'm a
positive
big,
mindset.
and it's manifestation as well, because
Mm,
I yes, I do have vision, but where I am now isn't something that I've set out to do. I didn't.
mhm,
I always pictured myself having something like this, and I'd never wanted to be someone based in an office for somebody, because I did that for years and went, I'm a
it's not for
bird
me.
with its wings cut, like
Yeah.
not keen.
Mhm,
And then also I wanted to do something where I was on site, I was talking to everybody, making these connections, but able to do it anywhere in the world,
mm,
like anywhere. And so I can now do that, which is something, 3 4 years ago I would have been dreaming about, going, oh, how can I make this happen? And now it's with putting all these little bits and pieces together without even realizing, sometimes
mhm.
I have made it happen. And now I get to, this is the first podcast I've ever done.
It's an
I know.
honor
And
to
I,
be
when
your
I,
first one.
yeah. And when I saw all of the caliber of guests that you've had, I just went, oh my God, these
Mm.
women are so fucking amazing. Like,
Well, thank you. That's like
you
my big goal.
know,
I want people to be like freaking out about the woman because I am every single one I interview, yourself included.
thank you. But yeah, I just went, they, this is amazing. And so thanks for having me. Like,
You're
it's really
welcome.
cool be able to share my story and, be amongst this caliber of people. So that's awesome. I also, for years, have kept, because I've had a few businesses like throughout my
Mm,
time, for the creative outlet between the two.
mhm.
I took an old mechanics warehouse in Mermaid Beach, which is across from where I live, just here on the Gold Coast, and I turned it into a music venue, wedding venue, creative arts venue. Like, it was
Cool.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And I look back at that and I go, when I took the lease, I remember I was playing golf, and the guy called, he's like, hey, do you want this lease? I went, yep, I want it. And I remember thinking, I got $1,200 in my bank account, and how am I going to do this? I don't even know what my goal is. But
Mm,
again, just took it because I went, there's an opportunity. And I look at that and I go, because I have an ability to run numbers, but also piece
mhm,
things together, that's the only way I think I was able to really get that thing happening.
mhm.
That makes sense,
Yeah.
utilizing your skill set, and, oh, I'll do this for you if you can come and do some work for me. So being
Mhm.
able to do that trade off with your skill, it's
I
a
love that.
a crafty little, thing to be able to do. And so from having that to then manifesting just being able to work from anywhere and aligning yourself with the right people and the right softwares and the right
Tools
just
kind of sounds
tools.
like a
Yeah.
little bit. Hmm.
Yeah, it is. It's tools, just your own energy, because sometimes it's really lonely having a
Hmm.
business. And, I'm not, you have your own business
I
or
do.
you,
Yes.
yeah. So you know what that's like, where you sometimes sit around going, all right, so now I'm the expert in this.
It's just me,
Um,
myself, and I. You're like,
me,
who are we gonna get? It's gonna be you
yeah,
and Google, and like probably a call to your mom to be like,
yeah. It's like if I whistle, no one's whistling back. So,
yeah.
yeah, I think it's a whole, I guess, roundabout of how things end up where they are. But yeah, it's manifestation, just having a good vibe
Mm.
and opportunity presenting
Yeah,
itself.
I love that because, like, that story, thank you for kind of going into it, even though it's a little bit of an abstract question. But that story kind of reminded me of the Prince story again because it was the same idea of like, I was golfing and some random person called
Yeah.
me and I didn't even
Yeah.
think. I said yes because what is the worst that could happen? I will figure it out later. And like the learning from that, being open to learn, being open to try something new, being open to say yes, I think is so powerful. And I think a lot of people get really, I know myself in my past, the things that I've regretted the most in my life is probably when I've been so rigid in identity of being like, nope, you can't do that because you're
Hmm.
a geologist or you're a scientist. Nope, you can't do that creative thing because that's not for you. You're this way. And I've said no, where I should have just said yes. I should have just taken that leap and been like, why not? Let's try it. Like, what's the worst
Yeah.
that could happen again? And I always look back on those moments as a lesson of being like, oh, you kind of blocked your blessings, whether you realized it or not. And don't do that again. When someone comes up and says, like, hey, do you want this crazy lease? Do you want to try this? Be like, yeah. Do you want this job? Yes. Do you want to become an estimator? Also, yes. Why not? Let's
I give it a crack. Why not? I mean,
yeah. It's very powerful though. Like it's far more powerful than like manifestation and I think just positivity and like very abundant seeking. I think it's a very beautiful thing. That's wonderful.
yeah. I think it is. It's abundance seeking,
Hmm.
but also not on that. I just have to preface, I'm not trying to be greedy with the abundance. I
No.
do, yeah, I do like to give back with things. So once a year, I'll do charity events where we do like lawn bowls. So we raise money for mental health. I've
Oh,
done a couple of those builds over in like Vietnam and Nepal, doing
oh
another one this
amazing.
year in Java.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's again, you never know who you'll meet on these
Hmm.
things. And yeah, you can put your skills to better use. It's always a nice thing to be able to do.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's
To be
just the
kind, to
people.
give back. Yeah. Just be like
Yeah,
gratitude and
that's
again, kind
it.
of like the positivity. That's beautiful that you do that charity work and those charity builds. That's fantastic. I didn't know that. That's how
Yeah,
did that
it's
happen?
oh yeah, so that's another one. I was
Another phone call. Yeah, being like, "Hey, would you like to come to Nepal?"
yeah.
Sure.
Oh man, I'd always wanted to go to Vietnam, and I thought, well, let's do something good at the same time. And so one of my best friends, Ducky, we've just kind of kept doing them.
Mm.
And yeah, there was no, I guess, no real. I didn't get a phone call on that one, but one I did have to do some real like mad hustle because I
Mm.
I had no time left on my visa, and that was fun. So
A
yeah,
week to get this house ready to go. Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
was like, okay, let's get this going. But no, it's yeah, I think especially when you have a business, if you're in the position to do that and give back, it's a
Mm.
nice thing because we're quite lucky. Well, I feel like I'm very lucky in what I've got and where I am and what I get to do in the future because I know I'm putting things in there again without even realizing, but of where I want to go and
Mhm.
what I'll achieve. So I think being humble and giving back is a really important step for things if you're in a position to do that. I'm
Mhm.
understanding that's from a position of luck that I can actually
Mhm.
do that. I'm privileged for that. So
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think that's really beautiful. It's using that platform and usually using all of that, like that yes energy of being like, okay, it got me here. And then now it's time to give back and to do something good for the community. I think that's fantastic. I
mm,
absolutely love that. Tara, when I was researching your company, because you're the company of amazing. Our house has amazing slogans, and there was another one that I also think was really beautiful, and I think it kind of ties into this as well of your charity work, or that puts like a new lens on it as well. Is this idea of think global but act local? Did I get that right, or did I? Yep,
Yeah. Yeah.
yep. Think global, act local. Could
Hmm.
you kind of talk about what that actually means in practice? Like, if you have that motto, what are the steps to really complete this? And like, what does that actually look like?
The premise behind that is that every action that we do, let's, here on a job site in Australia, the actual, ripple effect across the world can be felt. So
Mm,
if you're choosing certain products and suppliers and methods that, even just the smallest of steps here can have such a massive impact on the world, because you think about the plastic pollution,
mhm,
the the fuel pollution, and it's just, if we can design things and build things better, then I think the impacts across the world is felt. That's where that stems from. And it's also doing business in a sense of, yeah, we do things locally, but again, it's like, let's be global, because
mhm,
we're all in this together. And yeah, we might be building in Australia, then you might be building in Canada, you might be building in,
mhm.
I don't know, Kazakhstan or something like
Yeah.
that. We're all doing something very similar, and sharing all the knowledge and the skills is, I think that's really powerful, because
Mm,
sometimes our industry is quite closed off with how people do things. And I get it, we all have our certain methods which makes us us, but
yeah.
for the most part, I think if we all, open up and share how we're going with it, it's going to make the industry better
Mhm,
as well. It can
mhm,
that's something, with that global act local, think global. It's just, yeah, let's all knowledge share and just build better as
mm.
well for
I
business.
love that. No, that's fantastic. That's like thinking more in like terms of impact and global impact and sustainability and culture change. And like, I couldn't
Hmm.
agree more that I think the basis of that is going to be one, this mindset of being like every single idea or every single action that we have has consequence. And that consequence might not be just right now within Australia. It could be a 10-year long consequence. It could be a 20-year long consequence. And it could be actually felt global. But then to also learn from each other and to have that communication in an industry like construction where everyone's very, very secretive. Like, I do feel like it is a secretive industry because it's all
Hmm.
vendor specific and it's all trying to kind of compete for a project. How does
Yep.
that, how did you get there that you have this knowledge share? Like, did you guys start organizations? Did you start informal groups? Is it something that just developed with time? How did you actually do that communication?
Literally just through having a yarn.
I
In
love
Australia, we call it
it.
having a yarn is just having
Yeah.
a chat, and it's just, it's, you'll be at a barbecue and someone will know, oh, the guys will be standing around, they're talking shop, and someone, oh, you're
Mm,
an estimator. Boom. I'm like, you've got 20 minutes to talk shop with me, and then we're done. But
mm,
that 20 minutes, you're learning so much from that. It's good,
mm.
everyone's just relaxing and having a chat about, oh, this is what's happening, or, how would you approach that? So yeah, it's literally just been through talking, and the power of things like Instagram as well.
Mm,
So there's builders over in America that I talk to, and I go, that is such a sick idea of how you're doing that. Or, what was your premise behind creating why that happens? And so that's, just, yeah, it's just having conversations and
mm.
being open. And, you obviously don't reveal all of your cards, if, because we're all
Yeah.
magicians, but it's just to have that discord of, yeah, this is what we're doing, this is what we're up to, and this is our challenges.
Mm,
And I think, touching on that global, it's the challenges, yes, from an industry, but also from the people. So
mm,
it's a very hard industry at times,
mhm.
for not only for builders but for trades, but for the guys who are out there actually physically building. It's a long slog, some of these jobs, and it's very mentally draining
Yeah.
thing to be doing. And
Mhm,
there's heaps of organizations now. I didn't start one personally, but the lawn bowls days that I just spoke about, where we do those for a company called TX, and this is a
mm,
conversation starter, and those guys do amazing things for mental health, and it's
mm,
aimed at our, the blue collar industry. And so they're doing a really good thing of getting people to talk, but just in general. So it's one of my questions when I engage with new builders is, do you have a strong company culture and do you encourage that?
Mm.
And it's one of the questions I ask is because, one, I'm selective on who I work with, but two, it's because I want to know that who I am working for gives a shit about their people,
Yeah.
because we're not on this big turning wheel to not give a shit about each other.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even though my part's small, I still like to think that who I'm working for thinks about that stuff.
Well, it's again goes back to that motto, right? Of like, gee, like it has consequence. And like we're here to like treat the earth well. We're here to like choose the right material and choose the right way that we're actually going to build something. But we're
Hmm.
also here to like treat each other well and with respect. And I love that call out to the organization that's helping with mental health, because I do think these industries have notoriously poor culture due to long work hours, due to rotational life. It's hard on your body, it's hard on your mental health, it's hard on everything. I think
Hmm.
substance abuse is very common within these spaces. I know mining has the same
Yeah.
culture and problem. So that's wonderful that it's just this change of starting to have conversation. That's very powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. And it has to start from the top as well.
Hmm.
So if you're the leader in an organization, people look to you for that. And whether you like it or not, it's just what you've got to do. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's important that people do that.
Yeah.
Have a
And I
yarn.
think it builds on each other, right? Like you just need
Yeah.
one person, one leader, like you said, and then it can snowball, but it's going to have like a real world effect on somebody's life and their
Hmm.
ability to perform and their happiness really at the end of the day at work, which is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you're not happy doing what you do, then you don't perform, but you're
Hmm.
also just miserable.
Yeah, it's not nice for anybody. It's not a nice way to
No,
live.
like you're just
No.
a miserable person to be around, and yeah, it's not good.
No. No, it is not. Tara, thank you for indulging me with an extra follow up of like how do you actually create that and like what is the steps of that. One thing that we spoke to earlier, and this was before the interview, but we had a couple conversations and I felt like you were nailing it completely because it was like some of my big pet peeves or some of the things that I also feel the same way, one with the interconnection of art and science. And I think that kind of stems towards this idea of normalizing science and maybe normalizing math, and not that everyone has to be a genius if they're in the STEM field. And like you said, kind of at the beginning of this interview, if you're like, if my friends knew that I was like a math dominant field now, they would have no idea. And I was wondering if you could touch on that, like that misconception of genius, because like, were you always just kind of like, it sounds a little bit like go with the punches, that you're just like, yep, I don't know, I wouldn't expect it either, but here I am kicking ass. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah. So my brain, this is how I've kind of worked it out for myself, right?
Mm.
I love music and I'll put music on when I do numbers. And so there's certain rhythms. So there'll be really hard thrashy music that I put on if I'm doing bill of quantities. And that's just delving into these plans, writing these scopes of works that, yeah.
Just a head
So someone's
banging
like,
to it.
yeah, someone walking to go, what are you doing? I'm like, what? I'm doing numbers. Like, it's not Mozart. This doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, hey, this is my journey.
Mm.
And so music is a really big player in that. But then also the creative side of, I loved art. And so
Mm.
being able to look at plans and read plans, right? And so
Mm.
that's a skill set in itself that I've met other estimators who are like, oh, I can't understand a roof pitch. Like, what do you
Mm.
mean? Like
It's a
they're like,
nice
well,
drawing. Yeah.
yeah. I'm like, it's this, look, and that's your valley, and that's how. And I used to do this with my hands. That's how I learned to understand roof pitch.
Mm.
Yeah, it's like ridge, this, that. Okay, done. And then I'd mark it up, and it's all sweet. And so I think my brain having that creativity of going, think outside the box of how you'll figure this out, and then the formulas behind it are just formulas.
Mm.
So going to job sites, and I've spent a lot of time on job sites. Purposely every job that I do, I build in time that I go out to site, see the boys, have a look at what's going on, because understanding the practical from seeing it and physically touching it
Mhm.
to then understanding the mathematics behind it, that's how I've been able to overcome that. Like my brain wasn't math
Mhm.
orientated. It was the creative side, but through using my creativity of how I can marry them up,
Mhm.
that's how I was able to then get to where I am.
Mm.
So again, a bit of a mishmash, but it's just as how I was able to understand it all.
Mm.
And now how I just, yeah, you just spend a lot of time on site looking at things and then looking at the plan and then just going, sweet. So this is my formula of how I'll work that out, or this is what I'll
Yeah.
apply to it each time to get that to happen. And I look at the guys on site, and I call it site maths because they are like geniuses. They're like,
Yeah.
boom, 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 that, okay, get me 17 lengths. I don't want it, but 2, 3, and then another at 6. Like,
Hmm. You're
all
like,
right.
how did you do that? Just by like looking, but it's like
Yeah,
all complicated math, whether they realize it or not, to be like, that's what that
yeah,
actually is. Yeah. That's what you
exactly.
just
And
did.
and that to me, I go, that's genius. But then they
Hmm.
look at me and they go, you just blow my mind by putting all this together, and then that's the money that I'm going to make, and this is how we're going
Hmm.
to do it. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Like, it's just, it is what it is. So it's just,
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
also a genius too. No big deal. Like we do
no,
the same
it's,
thing.
it's not even that I'm a genius. I'm just going, well, I'm taking what this needs to look like and
Mm,
how I'm going to get it from here. Is just, just pieced it together
mm.
with my weird little creative formula brain.
I love that though. Like thank you for walking through kind of sight math because I think that's not a difference that your brain was never set up for math or for science. I think it's maybe that the rigidity of school teaches what science has to be and what does math look like. And to be a mathematician, it's this and it's this is how you're going to write a formula and you have to understand like the kind of abstract nature of it without having the practicality. And I think a lot of people's brains work the opposite way to be like, okay, well, give me the problem, give me what we're actually trying to solve and what that looks like in real life, give me the practicality, and then I can go back to the theoretical. But like you do it the opposite way, and I have no idea why we're even looking at this scratchy little numbers on a piece of paper. Like, what's
Yeah,
going on?
you've absolutely nailed that because it's true. And I think
Yeah,
about this one maths teacher who I think she used to look at me and just go, like, why? What are you doing? I'm like,
I don't
I don't
know.
know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, this is all just brackets and letters to me right now.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand the principle, like you're saying, of seeing the practical side of it. Is like, why do I actually need to
Hmm.
understand it? And like until you're actually in the real world and you've got to figure that out, then you don't really have any grasp on it unless
Hmm.
you're a mathematical genius. And for those people, I'm like, you blow my
Yeah,
mind.
there's some people that like that they love the theory and they can like vision it. But like I think like myself, I really connected to that when we talked about that because I was like that was me as well at school. Like I needed a 3D perspective before I could actually understand what was on paper. Like if I didn't have a practicality of being like, okay, well, why do we actually care about that? Or what does that like for me, chemistry was I loved chemistry in the end, but it was hard at first because I didn't actually understand what those letters made up to then but then to be like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, we're caring about like iron and this is how iron is interacting within a space. It instantly made way more sense. It was just that
Hmm.
practicality is what I needed.
Yeah. And it probably goes down to how, you know, I'm not a very good theory studier.
Mm.
So if I've got to do study, and I'm not from a university background.
Hmm.
I did that
Yeah.
6 months, but
Yeah.
pretty much an expert. Uh, so, so for me, anytime I have studied and I've got my done certain things, again, not understanding why, but in the future, it's helped me
Hmm.
out. And I've had to do in class study because I'm not someone who can sit on the laptop or a computer and be like, oh yeah, sweet, I'm just doing all of these assignments or all
Hmm.
of this work. I need someone to be there with me,
Doing
explain,
it.
like, doing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like the energy, and I think it's the energy of people as well around, which probably helps in how I run the business too.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's very, yeah, like it's boring what I do, but I make it fun by having those good crew and
Hmm.
interactions. And sorry, just touching on the science and the building industry, I'm on the passive side of building. It's
Mm.
quite scientific at times.
Mm.
And that's something that I'm getting like quite more into, of the passive builds and
Hmm.
understanding how that kind of the healthy home, high energy efficiency, and the science behind it. And that, again, science wasn't my strong suit, but because I'm seeing the actual product,
Hmm.
I'm like, oh yeah, sweet, that makes so much sense that that's what needs to happen. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
cool,
you're like,
okay,
I
that's
know
how we
that.
build it.
And I've had 10
Yeah,
years of experience on site, like building. I know exactly what we need. I know what you're trying to change. I get it. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah, it's pretty cool when you figure that out. I've not actually really thought about that much, but yeah, that's a good question. So
I love it. No, well, I love that. And maybe this is this for the next one because this next one is a little bit of like a switch, but it was like what has been something that's been like the most surprising or like something that you just like didn't expect. But it also kind of sounds now after talking to you to like everything
my
has
whole
been a little
life.
bit surprising. Yeah, I feel like, well, why not? Okay, well, that's new. And now I'm going to Vietnam. Now I'm doing this. Like it just
Yeah.
it sounds like it's the whole thing. Is there one that stands out that you're like, oh my goodness, this is when I think back, I can't believe I got the opportunity to do that project, that collaboration, that like new thing. Is there something that stands out?
There's going to be two.
Okay.
So the first one is the warehouse that I created
Yeah, I
and
love it.
started.
Mm,
That was something that I look back and I go, one, I had a good time. Two, all my mates had a really good time.
fun.
Like,
Hmm.
you're welcome. you know? And, the connections and the experiences and all that goes with it. But one of the other big ones for my career, I guess, is when I first started, and my best friend reminded me of this probably 6 months ago when we were on a walk. She's like, dude, do you remember when, you first started and you were working in that office and you went, fuck this, this is not my life forever. I want to build like big homes, really big, unique homes down in, let's say, northern New South Wales, which
Mm.
is just across the border. She's like, so do you remember when you sat in that office and you said that? I was like, yeah. She goes, you do it. You
That manifestation came real.
now, this is your life now. Like, you get to work on those projects. Like, oh, like I'd actually not
Thought of it.
taken that moment to
Hmm.
step back and go, yeah, true. Like, you
Hmm.
you talk a lot in your life, but then it's when one of your mates says, dude, you actually said you want to do that and now you're doing it.
Mm,
So I think that was a pretty cool realization
mm.
of
I
things.
love
Yeah.
that. I like that like
Yeah.
moment realized because I think sometimes it does take people out close to you and outside of yourself to be like, no, like calm down. Cause sometimes you get bogged down of being like, oh, I don't really know what's going on, or like, am I like accepted here? Or like I feel a little imposter syndrome, or
Yeah.
like, do I actually have the background to be able to do this project? Like all of these insecurities come up. And sometimes it's really nice to be like, no, no, no. Like, that offhanded goal setting you did 10 years ago, like you got there and you're like, you're doing fantastic. And like, you got all
Yeah.
these awards for it. Like, you're having that life. That's pretty amazing.
And classic girl brain too. So do you remember when you said that one comment at 7 p.m. on the 29th of, February and blah, blah,
Because
blah? You're like,
I do. Yeah,
yeah, you're like,
yeah.
oh, actually, yeah, I do remember that. I'll find the text message. Let
Yeah.
me
I
hold
have it
up.
on receipts. I put it in your
Yeah.
little note file that, like, you said this
Hold my
here.
poodle. I'm busy.
Yeah. I love that. On that, do you know any other like manifestation you made 10 years ago that's about to start happening in this year?
Oh,
Like anything that like the next step of ArtHaus. I think coming to Canada sounds like a goal, which I absolutely love.
we're acting local, thinking global.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I think that for me, this year or in the next maybe 18 months would be a goal to build overseas somewhere.
Mm.
Yeah. And setting things up now where I can do that. And yeah, just putting it out to the universe and, making those connections with people like yourself. You never
Mhm.
know who's listening or,
Mm.
whatnot. And yeah, I think that's what I want to happen in the next 18 months.
I love that.
And some other things from my little book. I've got this book as well. Like
Mm.
I've kept it for years. It's all my business ideas, all my random little notes of, oh, let's do this event. And I'll go through and I tick them off, which is really
Fantastic.
cool. And
Yeah.
so, podcast, that's one of the
Tick.
ones I'm going to tick off.
Oh
Yes.
my goodness. Again, it's like it's an honor to be that tick, to be that the Smoko is the tick off in that book. That's fantastic. Can I ask you a question with the goal of working overseas? Where did that come from? And why the snow in particular? Like, why you're like, I want to work in a cool climate? Is it just because it's so different than Australia and something completely new?
Yeah. It's completely different to where I'm based at the moment. And then,
Mm.
we get snow, but we don't get like proper snow.
Snow. Yeah,
Yeah, and I
you don't
like
get snow. I'm
no,
sorry. I like.
exactly. I'm like, we get pretend.
Yeah,
It's just someone out there with one of those ice machines, like,
yeah. Here you go for 5 seconds. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. The overseas and the snow, I like a challenge.
Mm,
And one of my favorite things about, what I do is the logistics of setting up sites and understanding how we get, some of these materials or some of these products from where they need to come to and then on site. And then how do we
mm,
actually install them? So understanding all of that. And I think doing that in a climate where it's totally foreign would
mhm,
be such a cool experience.
mm.
Like to be able to go, oh yeah, we got this pallet of something in the middle of this snow field that's, you know, again, totally
Tundra.
green on the snow lingo. I'll have to brush
Yeah,
up on it.
I was like, I don't really know what a snow field is. I don't know if
I
that's a
don't
tundra,
know.
but I
It's
was
just a
like, it's
field with
cute. Just
snow.
a field with snow. Just that's what Canada is. It's just a white out location.
Beautiful. Yeah. And because
Yeah.
when I was in Canada, it wasn't snowing, but it's a beautiful country. So it's
Mm.
all the time, I think. Yeah. So it's just that logistics and, again, the science of how you
Yeah.
build in those climates versus how we build here. And the passive home of how we build, I think that's kind of like your standard over there of how you construct
I
almost like
think
everything thermally wrapped,
yes. Yeah.
ply.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So I find that really interesting of how you
Mm.
construct as well.
I think
But then
that's really
again,
cool.
open up to any country who's got a job going. So
I call her up. Okay. We'll add
hello,
all of your info. They'll know where to go. Like you have an interview, you have a
you get to
project
work
for
with
Tara.
this.
Yeah, exactly. This is coming to site, man. We're going on that snowfield. But like I do love that answer because I love that, like, again, this beautiful mindset of like positivity, but also being like, yes, and why not try something new? And like, why not learn something new and like challenging yourself to be like, okay, what's the next growth? Because if you do want a logistical challenge, try build in a snowy location. Like, not only to be like, yeah, these things are coming from X, Y, and Z to go here, and this is where they need to be installed, but to be like, you have 2 days to do it because there is a blizzard on Thursday and then we're
Yeah,
done for the entire season. Or like at
exactly.
-40, you're going to have everybody working outside. So you better try to build that roof as fast as possible for those poor people stuck in the snow. Like it is a
Yeah,
complete different beast for sure.
so different, so different.
Mm,
But yeah, the challenge. I think the challenge is what I'm thirsty for.
mm,
And yeah, there's just those connections too, because heaps of my builders are now my mates. So
yeah.
it's a cool little community of people that like-minded that you build and get to
Mhm.
interact with.
No, totally. Very, very similar personalities. Well, to
Mm.
end it off, Tara, I wanted to kind of ask about advice and any advice of any young women who want to think creatively, who wants to kind of look at construction in a new way, who wants to bottle up this energy of like, yes, and being like, why not try to open up a new warehouse for all your friends, or why not trying to do a cool project? If they were to try to emulate what you do with ArtHaus projects, what would be your advice to them?
Saying yes to the opportunities.
Okay.
That's a big one. But also knowing your value,
Mm,
because that's a hard thing. I've took me a long time to learn that as well. But understanding your value and what you will and won't tolerate from
mm,
things is really important. The saying yes, obviously, it's a big one. But just going with the flow, trusting your gut.
mm,
Because there's certain jobs or tasks that you'll do and you go, "Pff, this is so annoying."
mm,
But understanding how that annoying task actually benefits a bigger picture,
mm.
that's cool, because the next phase is you're going to be in the bigger picture. You're not going to be doing that
The
annoying
boring
task.
task. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to be the
So
one driving it. Hmm.
yeah, exactly. So harnessing in on, all those tasks make up a bigger thing. And just the creativity of it is, if you want to go out and be different in your field, if you want to make estimating fun, however you can do it, then go and do it. If I've got builders like who are female builders,
Mm,
and they're killing it because it's just like, yeah, just a chippy and I'm a builder, like whatever. But they make it fun.
mm,
We just have that a fun vibe about it. And it's, yeah, just trying not to be nervous when you're on site. And I know it's easier said than done. I grew up with brothers and an older sister, but having brothers, you're kind of already in that dude environment. without even realizing.
Yeah.
And for people who aren't, it can be quite daunting. I
Mhm.
remember when I used to work out on job sites and be screwing cable trays into like I-beams, and I would feel everybody's eyes looking at me.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you'd be sitting there just going, or
Yeah.
sitting on top of the ladder going, do not fuck this up. Do not fuck this up.
Mhm.
Because if you
Just a
do,
lot of pressure. Mhm.
yeah, and it's a lot of pressure. And I think also we probably put that pressure on ourselves
Mhm.
externally. Because if a dude was doing it and he fucked up, I'd be like, oh, whatever. But
Yeah,
in your
it'd be
mind,
very
you're like, 'cause,
anticlimactic, but you're like, if I do it, if I fuck up in this moment, it is like a blow for all of feminism. It is a blow for
oh my
us, the
God,
entire world. It's too much
it's
on your
done.
shoulders. Yeah.
I'm never
Mhm.
allowed back on site again. My
Yeah.
dad's going to disown me.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, he'd just be like, "Ooh, do it
Oh, that
again."
was like,
Like,
yeah, that was kind of a bad install, or like that didn't
yeah,
go
like
well. Like, whoops. Yeah.
exactly. So just putting yourself out there in the awkward situations and just having fun.
Hmm.
Like, you're going to go through life and there's going to be hurdles and there's going to be things that you just go, well, that was pretty shit. But for the most part, you can turn it around and take that and use it as a positive for how you
Hmm.
want the next, job or task to run with.
Next
And it's
learning.
it used to be really people like, oh, such a nerd. It's like, well, you know what? Being a nerd's kind of fucking cool.
I love being a nerd. I'm like, I'm way
Yeah.
too old in my life to like pretend like I'm not one, to be like, I just have to accept it. Like, do you see all of these like sci-fi books behind me? I have to just run with it. You know what I mean?
Love sci-fi.
Like, me
Like,
too. Like, being a nerd
it's
is cool, man. Because like our stuff
yeah.
is cool. Sci-fi is cool. Fantasy's cool. It's mainstream now. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, exactly. It's like don't be embarrassed by it. It's just be you.
Mm,
And that's what people appreciate. Is just being your authentic self because the world's full of just non-authenticity.
mhm.
So, yeah, I think those would be my hope someone gets a takeaway from that.
Oh, they
But
will.
yeah.
I hope I didn't. I was like, Alexis, keep your internal thoughts of sci-fi in your head. She is having a moment. So I hope I didn't just like take them off the path, but I love that
Oh,
advice of
no, no, not at
authenticity.
all. I love sci-fi. It's one of my favorite like genres of movies to watch.
Me too. Yeah, so the advice shouldn't be that sci-fi is awesome, even though it is. The advice should be
Yeah,
authenticity and saying
authenticity,
yes.
saying yes, and understanding that sometimes the shit tasks actually
Mm,
lead to better tasks.
mhm.
And yeah, if you want to go for it, just go for it. Sometimes you just have to do a few little Instagram videos of just what you're up to. It gets people engaged because what you're doing, someone else doesn't do.
Mhm.
And that in itself is kind of interesting. So
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah,
just roll with the punches.
I love it. I love that answer because, like, I also love that call out back to like, you never know who's watching and you never know the impact that you're making just by being yourself. And I think that's what's the most powerful about authenticity is like everyone might struggle with it at some points of like insecurity or presentation, and then seeing somebody be themselves is very powerful, and I think it's very uplifting. So I love that advice. Well, Tara, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was a delight. I absolutely love it.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Honored to be the tick in the book. And like, hopefully, you know what? I hope that this is an episode of manifestation in itself and that someone listens to it and is like, you know what? I got a snowfield. I got a snowfield that Tara can come and she
Like,
can help
don't know
me
what it
out.
is, but it's a snowfield. Yep.
I think that's the entire like province of Ontario could be listening and be like, yeah, snowfields, Manitoba, they're listening right now too. They'll be like, yeah, that's all we got. We got snowfields and nothing else. So hopefully we can get you a project from this interview.
That'd be amazing. Oh, what a dream. No, and thank you for making this platform. I think when I reached out to you, I was like, we don't really fit in anywhere as STEM as
Mm,
females. And it's really cool to actually see a space where all these women who are doing these really cool things. And it's not just, women and people, sorry, doing these really
yeah.
cool things where you're in your industry and you don't really understand your impact, but you're actually making one without realizing.
Mm,
And it's just cool that they're trailblazers. So
yeah.
it's really nice to be
A
even
trailblazer.
considered in that level of
Yes, of
these other
course.
people. It's yeah.
Yeah. You've
Yeah,
been a
it's really cool.
trailblazer for a long time, for like 13 years. Ever since you went to that Prince concert, you've been a trailblazer.
Yes, fully. Oh man, that was such a great gig too.
Oh, it would have been unreal. I would have
Yeah.
loved to see Prince. Prince and sci-fi, those are the two. The takeaways, Prince and sci-fi,
Prince
please.
and sci-fi. So you go to a gig, answer yes to a text message, and then go see an absolute musical genius the next night.
Ugh, I absolutely love that. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for being part of Smoko. And thank you guys for listening. This is the Smoko podcast. We'll see you next Wednesday. Okay, bye-bye for now. Ta-ta.
Bye.